Well, good afternoon, everyone. Happy Women's History Month and happy International Women's Day. Today and every day, we celebrate those women who have influenced the social, economic, cultural, and political landscape of our nation through their achievements. My name is Leslie Ekpe, and I'm a PhD candidate in the Higher Education Leadership Program here at Texas Christian University. I have the honor to serve as the first Black woman president of the Graduate Student Senate, and I am so excited to moderate this panel, this session this afternoon. Whether you are at home or at work, I look forward to you joining us in the conversation today. I would like to first pay homage to those whose land we occupy here at TCU. TCU acknowledges the many benefits, responsibilities, and relationships of being in this place, which we share with all living beings. We respectfully acknowledge all Native American peoples who have lived on this land since time immemorial. TCU especially acknowledges and pays respect to the Wichita and affiliated tribes upon whose historical homeland our university is located. And now I would like to introduce our panelists to this afternoon's session. Electra Kitchen, class of 1984. Ms. Kitchen received a bachelor's in secondary education and pursued a career in education for 33 years, including roles as a teacher, counselor, and district coordinator. Electra also received her master's in education and guidance counseling from the University of North Texas in 1994. Currently, she is a licensed professional counselor supervisor and has her own private practice called Empowering Minds Counseling Services in Arlington, Texas. Welcome to the session, Ms. Kitchen.
Thank you. So glad to be here.
Awesome. I would now like to introduce Tabitha Tan, class of 1999. She is originally from Shiprock, New Mexico, and after high school, she moved to Fort Worth, Texas to attend TCU, where she graduated in 1999 with a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Science with a minor in psychology. She has spent the last 18 years working at corporate offices of Mary Kay Incorporated in Dallas, Texas, in various roles such as microbiology, validation engineering, quality engineering, supplier quality management, and she is currently an associate principal engineer in the corporate quality department at the Richards R. Rogers Manufacturing Research and Development Center. Welcome, Tabitha.
Thank you.
So glad to have you.
Thank you so much.
Next panelist we have is Ms. Tracy Williams, class of 2004. Tracy Renee Williams is a frequently requested facilitator, coach, program designer, and keynote speaker for Fortune 500 organizations, federal, state, and local agencies, universities, and K-12 institutions. Additionally, Tracy has been nationally recognized for her work with helping leaders lead well. Tracy serves as the current president of the Texas Christian University National Alumni Board and ex officio member of the TCU Board of Trustees. She also serves on the executive leadership team for Tarrant County Go Red for Women. Welcome, Tracy. I think you might be on mute.
I was. Thank you.
So glad to have you.
Glad to be here. Thanks.
And lastly, we have Julia Morales, class of 2022. Julia is from Georgetown, Texas, and she graduated from TCU in May of 2022. She is currently a first-year medical student at Baylor College of Medicine in Houston, Texas. At TCU, she was a member of many service-oriented organizations, such as Student Foundations, Pre-Health Ambassadors, John B. Roach Honors Ambassadors, and Gamma Phi Beta Sorority. She also holds multiple leadership positions at the TCU Ambassadors Chief Director of Operations, as well as resident assistants in Milton Daniel Hall. Welcome, Julia.
Thank you.
Awesome. So before we get started, I do want some of the audience members or all the audience members to know some of the questions will be specific towards certain individuals that you see on the panelists, and then some of our questions this afternoon will be geared towards the whole group. For a majority of the time, we have some questions that we have put together for our panelists, and then we will open up the last 5 to 10 minutes for Q&A from audience members. So get your questions ready. Feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll get to as many as possible. So ladies, without further ado, our first question this afternoon is, can each of you give some brief insight into the women who have influenced you and contributed to who you are today?
I'll go ahead and start. I contribute my success to my beautiful mother, and she was ahead of her time back in the day, and she always believed in education. And as a Black woman in the early 50s, she went to Morgan and received a bachelor's in English, and then she went on in the early 70s and got her master's in library studies, library science. So again, very progressive. We always knew it wasn't if we're going to go to college, we were going to college. And I'm talking about my sister and I. So I just really attribute that because she set up a foundation for me as a woman, and then also passing on to my children that they were college bound, and just made all the difference in my life.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I can go next. So for me, it would be, I would say my mother and my grandmothers. I actually grew up on the Navajo reservation. So I think growing up, like for my grandmother, she did not speak English. She did not write English, but somehow she knew I needed to go to school and get an education. So I think for her, it was really having someone be the first one to go to college was really kind of the focus for me, and really helping in my raising and helping me understand as far as the importance of education. And I think I was the first one in my family to graduate from college. So first generation college student here.
That's beautiful. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Tracy, Julia?
I can go. So growing up, my dad was actually in the military, so I was raised a lot by my mom, and so it's just the two of us for a majority of my childhood. And my mom was a teacher before she had me, and so she really stressed the importance of getting an education, learning to read, making sure you're good on all of your math facts. And I think having that stress from my mom at such a young age really just instilled the value of education and making sure you're always giving back to your community and educating the next set of leaders in your community.
I love that. Tracy?
Yeah, so as I was thinking about this question, I was reminded of a book that was written a couple of years ago called The Blessing. And so I don't know if how many people knew this. I just learned it a couple of years ago that a group of unicorns is called a blessing. And I consider all of the women in my life who have influenced me are magical in their own way. And I consider them unicorns because of how they've moved through life. And so I have a huge blessing that has influenced me from the time, from family members to friends. So of course, my grandmother was just an amazing woman. I will call her name, Melva Lee Delahousie Hinton. That woman she was such an influence. And of course, she raised my mother, and my mother is such a great influence. And a lot of people in my TCU family know Mama Terry and know how she has been an influence in my life and just really helping me establish the foundation for who I am. And I think that it's important for us to also just recognize that as we continue to grow, that different women come into our lives who influence us. So I have everybody from my sister to my aunts to the Golden Girls who are probably watching right now, to so many different women, even at TCU. And so Leslie, I hope you will allow me to just say their names very quickly because they are absolutely incredible women. And so Aisha Torrey Sawyer, Zorana Jones, Deidre Turner, Deidre Williams, who is not with with us anymore, but also her daughter, Dee Dee Williams, Amanda Stallings. And then I have 3 really great friends, Felicia Benton Wilson, Stacy Miller, Elsie Ume Johnson. Like, these are names who are constantly with me and who have influenced me. And let me not forget Candace Payne in that number as well. So many women. I probably have skipped names, charged it to my head, my heart, but I think it's really important for us to name them when we can, because they impact us day in and day out. And so I'm thankful for all of those women in my life who continue to inspire me.
Yeah, I love that. I love what each of you presented. I think it's important not only that we uplift, but that we reach back as well.
Yes.
And so those who have given to us, we can turn and say, who am I going to now share that wealth? And so I appreciate, Tracy, you naming them. If anyone would like to name them, please, this is the space to do exactly that. So the next question we have is, and this is for each one of you, as women, particularly women of color, what were some of the successes as well as the challenges that you faced while at TCU? So I know Electra started last time. Maybe we start with Julia.
Yeah, I can definitely go. So, like I said, I just graduated back in May, and when I was at TCU, it was predominantly female. And so it was probably a 60-40 ratio, which was probably new for TCU. It has been growing, and it's really awesome to see so many young girls, young women being a part of the TCU community. And so I really didn't feel like there were any challenges because I had such a strong network of other girls going through college at the same time I was. And I really felt this strong network a lot of times in my academics. So normally STEM is a male-dominated field, but at TCU, most of my classes and my lab partners were all girls. And so that was really fun to just sort of be with each other, lifting each other up and pursuing us to pursue graduate school, medical school, dental school, and just seeing all of the opportunities that TCU was providing all of these girls in my class.
That's awesome. I love that. Tracy, I'm going to go back this way.
Absolutely. I think one of the major successes was me being able to, I was poured into so much when I was at TCU, and being able to glean from the wisdom of those who were on campus at that time was a huge success for me. I would go sit in the offices of people, Dr. Turner, Greg Trevino. Like, I would sit in their offices and be like, okay, how am I going to navigate this particular situation, or how can I approach this? And so I was very thankful for having that open door policy that TCU had. And I consider that a success, because you can't say that you would have experienced that at other colleges or universities. I also believe that I was given a chance by one of my professors early on in my time at TCU. Dr. Ann Lucetti saw something in me that others didn't, and she took me under her wing and said, "You're going to be my research assistant. I'm going to I want you to experience what this area of study is truly like." And she gave me opportunities that I wouldn't have had otherwise. In fact, she ended up being the first person to give me my first big consulting gig after I graduated. So that continued on even after she was no longer at TCU. So those successes and having other people see something in me that I couldn't necessarily see in myself really does carries a lot of weight. I think the challenges that I experienced were not, one, I had a huge challenge getting hired when I finished undergrad. And I just remember the day that I was getting ready to walk across the stage. I'd been turned down for a job for an intern. I was doing an unpaid internship. We don't do that anymore, but unpaid internship, thought I was going to be hired. The company told me, "We're so sorry, we don't have the resources to hire you right now." And then the day that I was getting ready to walk into graduation, another intern who I hired came up to me and said, "I'll need your advice. I was just hired by XYZ company." So they told me no, they didn't have the resources. They turned it right around, and someone else that I brought on board said they hired them. So that was a blow, because you start to see how certain things begin to work. But I'm thankful for the experience. It opened my eyes to a lot of inequity in hiring and recruiting. And honestly, it fueled a lot of the work that I do now because of the things that I experienced early on. So even though you can take a blow in certain areas, you can turn that into fuel for what you continue to pursue, and how you want to operate, and how you want to navigate those same scenarios when you're in a position of influence later.
I love that. And I truly believe that no door that is for you will ever close.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it's not for you. So the ones that are for you will be open. So thank you, Tracy.
Definitely had a greater opportunity after that.
Yes. I love that. Tabitha?
So I'll start off with just the challenge at TCU. When back in 1994 was my freshman year, I actually came to TCU when I came with my mom. We came to the dorm, and when we got to the dorm, I had an experience with my roommate at the time, where she was like, "You speak English?" And I'm thinking, "Yes, I speak English." And she had told me that, one of the resident RAs had come to her and was telling her, "There's this Navajo girl coming. She's Indian. We don't know if she speaks English, if she lives in a teepee. Who knows what that is?" And I was very surprised. I guess I didn't know. And again, having grown up on the reservation and coming to the big city, in this case, I think at that time, I realized, oh, wow, I am off the reservation, and this is a whole different city. And I needed to figure out how to acclimate. Obviously, having that experience, my mother was very upset, and we went to the administration, and they apologized, of course. But I think at that time, I realized I am no longer where there are brown people who look like me. And actually, no one looked like me after I actually started classes. So I think that was a huge challenge for me in the beginning. So one of the ways that I worked through that challenge was really just finding people who looked like me. So I joined a sorority, which was a Hispanic sorority, Sigma Lambda Alpha. And again, I wasn't Hispanic, but we all looked the same. So I figured, why not, So I feel like that was one of the challenges that I had initially coming to TCU, is just having to live in two different worlds. One is where I came from, with people looking like me, almost 99.9%, and then coming to the big city where I was only probably less than 1% of the population at TCU. So, but then we come full circle, right? So 26 years later, back in 2020, we started back in probably 2018, 2019, where Dr. Scott Langston had recognized the need for recognition, or just creating what is the Native Americans Advisory Circle at TCU. And through lots of trials and tribulations and meetings with TCU and the chancellor and so forth, we've come full circle. And now we have, as you read at the beginning of this session, is the land acknowledgement. So kudos to TCU for recognizing that. That took a lot of time, but again, I feel like we are here as Native Americans, and we are still here. And I think, again, 26 years later, I think that's just indicative of just how we've come full circle. And although I had that challenge in the beginning, I would hope that now that TCU has recognized that we are here as Native Americans, that future students who do come to TCU would not have to face that same challenge.
Yeah, Tabitha, I love that you stated acclimate and not assimilate, because your identity is what makes this place beautiful. So for all of those individuals who are watching, students, faculty, staff, it's really important that we embrace everyone's identity and not trying to squeeze it into this culture that seems to already be a foundation. So I really love that. Thank you. Electra?
Okay, I disappeared for a minute, but I'm back. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes,
Okay.
we
So I
can.
think my biggest challenge was coming to TCU at the fresh age of 17. I was an Army brat, so very sheltered, and just not really knowing what I was getting into. I thought that I was smart, but coming into TCU and having some of those college classes, being kind of young and naive, and my parents gave me $25 a month, so, that was a struggle. No car, but, sometimes that's a good thing. But, I really learned how to embrace my freshman year. It was a little tough, didn't kind of lost myself trying to figure out how to study. But several of my successes that helped me finally get assimilated into the college was I tried out for the Showgirls. And shout out to Donna Haas, because I really found my place and it really helped me be a part. I love to perform. It really showed me how to balance school and practice, and I loved the traveling. I became a better student. And so I'm just so thankful for that. And then another success was just joining Delta Sigma Theta. Shout out to the Saras. Just surrounding myself with wonderful women, having a purpose, being able to serve. It was just an amazing time. And then my senior year, I was president of the sorority, but I also had student teaching. So once again, finding that balance, learning how to lead, but also learning how to study and keep my grades up, because my parents were like, you're going to keep a 3.0, you're coming home. Didn't want that, right? And so I really had to I came in as a little naive teenager, but I truly left as a proud, strong leader and a woman. And so just going through that transition, meeting some wonderful people, kind of like what Tracy said, had a lot of professors that really poured into me, a lot of people on campus that, recognized me and just really encouraged me. So it was just a good time in my life to, like I said, learn how to be a leader, learn how to study, learn how to be a part of an extracurricular team that just really brought me so much joy. So, that's what I remember a lot about my challenges, but turning them into successes.
I love that. That recognition is so needed, especially at a vulnerable age when we begin college.
Yes.
So this next question is for Tracy. Tracy, still being part of the TCU community and serving in a different capacity through your role, how have you seen TCU change over the years in regards to being more inclusive of women of color?
Yeah. So as I think about this, I think about this question in a couple of different ways. So not only representation, but then how that representation is distributed across the TCU community. And I think one of the ways that we've really seen that is that women of color are in much more visible positions at TCU. When we think about, Dean Watson of Adran, when we think about Dr. Jones, who is in the College of Science and Engineering, I mentioned Aisha Torrey Sawyer, as she was in an interim role as Chief Inclusion Officer, but still doing incredibly visible work in the DEI space. You have Cheryl Atkins Green, who's on the board of trustees. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. When it comes to the visibility that we see, I think that it's important for us to recognize those positions and the women who occupy them. And I know that I've only given a smattering of of that list, but I've seen a lot of progress in those areas. And I also think it's important for us to recognize when we hit a milestone when it comes to representation. So, Leslie, you're the first Black woman president of Graduate Student Senate. That was a huge milestone. I will be honest that I typically don't talk about the milestone that we hit when I came into my role, but being the first Black president of the Alumni Association, that was a milestone for us. So I think we should not only acknowledge the representation, but also acknowledge that, you know, we're creating, we've been a part of these moments over the last couple of decades that have really stood out. And I think it shows the commitment and the intentionality that the TCU community has and that the university has for ensuring equity and representation. That's what this is really about. Is to ensure that our community and the leaders reflect the community that we serve. And with the women that I just named and the women who I haven't named, who are all a part of this representation, I am going to just challenge you to say this one phrase today. And I have to attribute it to another TCU alum, Tanya Vesey, who graduated from our EMBA program. I saw her post this today and I was like, yes, girl. She's like, I am a big deal. And I want all of the women on this panel and those who are leading within our TCU community and beyond, like, you're a big deal. And we just need to recognize that we're all leading in some way. And I think at times we don't do enough to really acknowledge for ourselves and for each other what a big deal it is. So thank you, Tanya, for putting that out today and challenging me to say it to myself. I am going to now issue the challenge to all women who are watching to just say that you're a big deal. And I think that it's a big deal that TCU has been more intentional about the representation and the inclusivity of women of color. And I can only hope that we continue down that path for equity and representation across all stakeholder groups with the university.
I love that. Well, there's the challenge for today, ladies. I'm a big deal.
I'm a big deal.
Here we go. I love it. I love this. Thank you, Tracy. So our next question is for Electra and Tabitha. And the question states, what can we do to ensure that women have equal opportunities in education and employment?
Okay, I guess I'll go first. You know, as a lifelong educator, like I said, I was in the public system for 33 years. Not only did I feel like I poured a lot into my students to instill in them that college, no matter what your ethnic background, no matter what your socioeconomic background, is definitely doable. And the importance of, you know, furthering your education past high school. But now that I'm retired and have my own private practice, I am just so thrilled that I can continue instilling in other women by being a supervisor. And currently have 3 associates that are working towards their licensing. And all those 3 are women of color. And it just makes my heart proud to see the progress they're making, to be able to mentor and educate them, and once again, to be able to lead them. It just really warms my heart to be able to instill in them and encourage them in the field of mental health, which is so desperately needed to have women of color to be able to service everyone. But I just really feel like it's important to, you know, I am blessed to have that knowledge through many aspects of my experience. And so to be able to pour that into someone else, that really makes me happy and makes me just proud to be able to do that in others and see the progress. Definitely.
Yes, thank you. Tabitha?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and as Electra said, you know, as someone who, I guess, in this case, as being successful in my own community from the Native American side, I think one of the things that I try to do with locally within the DFW area is mentorship. We do have local chapters within the DFW area as far as local students in the Fort Worth ISD, in the Dallas ISD, whether that's Native American students or whether that's scientists, especially with females. and working with them and doing presentations. I think engineering and being an engineer as a female and being a scientist as a female is very rare, because it's definitely a male-dominated industry. But being able to actually mentor female students, whether high school or middle school, and actually at Mary Kay, we do have a program where we do tours for local students. So I have a good friend of mine. She's a principal at a local all-girls school. So she was able to bring her students through Mary Kay. And actually this morning I had another sorority sister text me and tell me that she's bringing her students also to Mary Kay to tour. So, and these are all female students. So I think here is just mentorship, and then also letting our young females know that, hey, you can be a scientist, you can be an engineer. And then the other piece is, sometimes when you're an engineer and when you're a scientist, it's not looked at as the cool job, as you're growing up in middle school or high school. But, in this case, when you come to Mary Kay, when we show students different aspects of what it means to be an engineer or a scientist, it actually kind of makes it look cool, as far as, especially with cosmetics, you're formulating new products. I mean, young women love lipstick and foundation and eyeshadows, and we make it fun for them. And then also as an engineer, I have a niece who she thinks she wants to be an engineer. She's like, oh my God, it's so hard. But yet she's in a robotics organization right now at her high school, and that looks cool and fun to her. So I think the other piece is just illustrating to these students that it's a cool thing now as opposed to it not being cool. So I think that's really part of my initiative, is to help educate and then to make it fun for the students too.
Yes, I definitely agree, especially when it comes to STEM. That cool part is seeing people that look like you in the positions. Oftentimes it may be a little difficult to dream it or think it if you're not seeing that representation. And so just as you stated, being able to see you, Tabitha, in that position, it becomes a little cooler. Like, oh, I think I can do this. Look at, a wonderful person doing it. So I think, that goes back to what we said at the beginning, reaching back. And how are you going to reach back? And so thank you for that.
Yes.
This next question is for Julia and Tabitha. So Women's History Month is celebrated every March. However, how do you intentionally create space in the places you serve to celebrate and uplift women like yourself and those on this panel all the time? And we'll start with Julia.
Yes. So I do something kind of similar to what Tabitha was talking about, is going to high schools or middle schools in her case, but I go to a local elementary school here in Houston once a week, and I mentor a group of 3 second and third grade little girls. And it's a program called Dream Outside the Box. And the mission is the basis is you can only dream what you've seen. And so these girls, when we show up on the first day in August, we ask them what they want to be. And most of them say they want to be a rock star or they want to be a teacher, which are all great professions. But when we get towards the end of the semester, every week we do a different activity with these young ladies. And so the first week we were meteorologists. Like, we built a little place to like check the wind speed. We built it out of like construction paper. The next week we were doctors, and so we sutured on a banana. And so every week we do a different activity with them just to expose them to a different career opportunity. And so back in December, we did another survey with the girls, and they all picked different careers than what they started with. And this is only second and third graders. And so we do this all the way up to from kindergarten to fifth grade with this program that I'm working with. And so it's just really exciting to see like the fifth graders now, what they want to do. And so that's something that I started doing here at Baylor. It's a program we do. But then also as a future doctor, I just think that like being a woman, being a girl who is a physician, can show my future patients and their families, because I want to go into pediatrics, that, hey, maybe this is something that I can do. Like, my doctor looks like this. Like, not all doctors look like what I thought they did. And so that's just something that I'm looking forward to once I start doing clinical work next year.
I love that. Congrats. That program sounds amazing. Like, is it too late for us to come?
Well,
I know
actually,
you-
this program at Baylor was started by a TCU alum.
I love
He
that.
graduated the year before me, and he had a similar program at TCU. I don't know if it's still there after graduation, after he graduated, but it's called Dream Outside the Box.
Yeah.
It's definitely a really cool thing that TCU should start back up again.
Yeah, that's
Love
amazing.
Love that.
Tabitha?
Okay, so mine is really twofold. I have two approaches, right? One is really starting with students back home. When I say back home, meaning where I grew up, which is in Shiprock, New Mexico, and that is on the reservation. So I think for that, I mean, it's I think one of the things that helps me with that is having grown up there and moved to the big city, I guess in their eyes, is really showing students there that it is possible, right? Because it is a lot different growing up on the reservation. And again, I say that with a smile because, you know, there was a lot of, during COVID, there was a lot of news over the reservation and a lot of photos and videos of COVID on the reservation. And I actually had some coworkers and friends say, wow, did you grow up like that? And I thought to myself, probably, but I guess to me, growing up, it was no different to me. But now that I do see it is different, and when you do come off the reservation and you go to the big city, whether it's for school, to be able to acclimate, it is difficult for some students because they know their family, and we're a very we're a culture that's very family based. We're raised by our aunts and our uncles and our grandmas and our grandpas, and you leave your whole community and you go by yourself to this brand new city and you know nobody. It's difficult. So I think just sharing my experience with students back home, whether it's high school, middle school, and I also start within my own family because I do have cousins who have their own kids, and helping them understand, you know, what does it mean to study? What does it mean to go to college? How do you fill out a college application? Really just the basics. And then the next steps is actually sometimes I help some of the students go and visit these colleges or visit these universities. Recently, I had it's my cousin's daughter, so I guess she's my niece, and she got a scholarship for a wrestling scholarship at a college in Washington. That's very big news, you know, but she was very, you know, scared to go. She didn't go her first semester. And so I said, hey, look, this is a great opportunity. You have a full scholarship. She's a great wrestler. She's actually headed to nationals in Puerto Rico this week. And but it took me to fly her mom, and her sister out there to say, hey, look, this is what college life is. This is what it looks like. Here's how you get on the plane. Here's how you drive from the airport to the college. And that seems very probably basic to some people, but these are, you know, like my cousin, she's never been on a plane before, and she's 48 years old. You know, so these are things that I try to help my family and the local people back home, especially with high school students, is very important to me because they did see it and she did go. She started here in January. Now she's going to the national championship in Puerto Rico. So there you go.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's so great. Yes. And it's still that foundation of reaching back, right? Being that mentor or whatever you have to be to step in and make sure that we are really creating this generational uplifting type of foundation. So I love that. Thank you for sharing. So ladies, this next question is for everyone. We've talked a little bit about, you know, who has influenced each of you all to be where you are at, some of the successes and challenges that you witnessed here at TCU during your tenure, and then how you celebrate and uplift other women. But how do you celebrate yourself? This work is hard, being in the position that you're in. I think I hear some laughs, so that I hope that means you are celebrating yourself. And if not, how would you like to celebrate yourself? Because this work is hard. I am recognizing each of you in this space, but I also hope you recognize yourself for what you have contributed to the successes of the environments that you occupy. So this is for everyone, no particular order, but how do you celebrate yourself?
Well, I would say that my coaches and my therapists would probably say I don't do it enough, but
Shout out to
I
therapy.
have them to remind me that I need to do it. I'll say this. We can be honest. I can be honest. I don't do it well, and I am just going to put that out there. But I have been challenged to do more of it. So I had a coach as I was working. I was doing some values work and boundaries work, which is one way of celebrating is by setting and staying true to your boundaries. So she challenged me to, as I stuck to my boundaries, she asked me how I would celebrate sticking to those boundaries at the end of the week. And she literally made me write it down on paper. So shout out to Laura Eigel, who made me write down how I was going to celebrate myself. And this was back in 2021. So, and I'm still a work in progress with it. But I will say this year I'm challenging myself in two ways. And one is to lean into ease a little bit more. And for me, that's celebratory because I typically will hit one goal and say, okay, on to the next without stopping. And asking myself, what do I need to do to rest? And what do I need to do to lean a little bit more into ease? Rest should not be a reward. Let me just say that. But identifying what ease looks like is a way for me to celebrate myself. I think the other part of this, and I feel like I'm being very transparent at this point, is really giving myself grace, but also acknowledging the work. Like I have other people acknowledge the work. But acknowledging the work and that for myself is a way for me to be more celebratory, and recognize that I have done some things that have been great, and that is okay for me to say. It doesn't take away from any level of humility that I need to have for me to also say there's greatness that has been accomplished in these areas. So a couple of different things that are a little bit more reflective on my part, and a challenge to myself this year to do more of that in order to just recognize myself. So
yeah, of course, because you're a big deal.
There you go.
And I would say, Tracy, you've got a great therapist. So shout out to the therapist. But for me, it's all about self-care. My mom and my sister really instilled that in me to take care of myself no matter what. Because if I don't take care of myself, how can I take care of others? And so I've really had to work on that. Yes, I'll say I turned the big 6-0 this year. And so, so just a new journey, new chapter of life that I'm really proud of the things that I've accomplished, but I know there's so much more that I can do. And so, yeah, I just really believe in, yes, I give a lot to others and love helping others, but I also, in order to continue to do that effectively, I need to invest and pour in myself. So whether that looks like, going to the spa, I'm going to travel a lot this year, connect with my friends, my sorority sisters, my family, obviously, is so important to me, my church, just all of that is just an important part of who I am. And so it allows me, with all those different connections, to continue to do great things. Like Tracy said, we have to, I always tell people, you have to sometimes be your own cheerleader. When nobody else is there, it's okay. And, giving yourself that grace and allowing yourself to be open to just new opportunities. So I'm just blessed and feel really great to be in this space today, and be in this new year of life that has presented me so many different wonderful joys and opportunities. So self-care, like I said, that's key for me.
I love it. Thank you.
I can go next. I think something that I've noticed or tried to find ways to celebrate now that I'm in medical school is to always just be grounded and remember that I'm a person first and I'm a student and future healthcare provider second. And so I think both everyone has talked about how you have to take care of yourself. And if I'm not making sure that I am the best Julia that I can be, I cannot be the best future Dr. Morales that my patients need me to be. And so it's something that needs to be done a little bit every day, because medicine is a huge journey and it's very easy to get overwhelmed because you're thinking about the next test, you're thinking about the next clinical, then you're thinking about residency, and then it's a fellowship, and then it's, oh, I need to get this job at this medical school in order to do X, Y, and Z. And it's easy to get lost in the entire journey. And so I think something that I've started doing specifically this term and this semester is celebrating the little victories. So if I'm just looking to when I graduate medical school, that's 3 more years of my life that I'm just flying by and pretending that doesn't exist for Julia as a person. And so it's being really intentional about taking breaks, celebrating passing a test, taking a Friday night off to spend time with friends, scheduling a weekend to go home and see family, and making sure that those are priorities of mine just as much as studying is, because at the end of the day, I want to be Julia. I don't always want to be known as just Dr. Morales. And so that's something that I really tried to be cognizant of and mindful of.
Yes, I definitely agree. As someone that is in a PhD program, it's just important to take those little victories because they're a part of the big victory. And I think sometimes we focus so much on like running the race and we forget it's a journey. Like you're going to run and you're going to get to one hurdle. And then little do you know, there's like 15 more to go, right? So just celebrating that you got over that one hurdle, or whether it's you won something, whatever it might be. I 100% agree with you, Julia. Tabitha?
Yes.
Yeah, so I may take the celebration maybe to a whole nother level, but
You
so,
should.
yeah. And just like some of the other ladies said, I think key is just giving yourself grace, right? As women, I feel like you have to do everything. You step up and you help. But at the same time, there are things that sometimes you can't be there, or you may not be able to do certain things. But I think is also allowing yourself to be able to have those boundaries to say, sorry, I'm not able to make that, or I'm not able to do that. But at the same time, I'm lucky. I do have a great circle of girlfriends who love to celebrate. We're very, they're like-minded. So one of the things that we've done, and I think is like celebrate the small stuff. Like I had a girlfriend pass an exam for a certification yesterday, and we're planning brunch. So I think that's been really good for all of us, trying to uplift each other and support each other. And then the other one is for my own personal, I started this probably maybe it's been 5 years now. I do take a trip every year somewhere for my birthday. I did lose my mother when she was 39 years old. She didn't quite make it to 40. So I feel like I continue to live for her. And why not celebrate birthdays? And
Right.
I think that's one of the things that I've done for myself. And I started about 5 years ago, and it's been amazing. And although I've given myself those 7 days, at least it's probably the best 7 days and really relaxing to be able to do that with my circle of friends too.
That's beautiful.
Good.
And I love that
That's
you
good.
started with saying no, because I think as, women, sometimes the burden is, well, if I don't do it, who's going to? Right. And so I could take a poll maybe in the Facebook chat of saying, how many people are good at saying no? Because I think it's something sometimes we all struggle with, right? But saying no is a part of celebrating yourself, giving yourself that mental capacity to just be and breathe, be Julia, Electra, Tabitha, or Tracy in that moment, and then get to what you have to get to later. My mom always says, whatever you take a break from, it'll be there when you get back. So it's either
And then some.
And Leslie.
So it's either you're going to get to it now, take a break, and get back to it. So you make the decision. So.
And Leslie, I love that you talked about saying no, because I love that no is a complete sentence. I don't owe you anything else other than that.
I agree.
Yes.
We are kind of quick to say no because, well, and
Right.
also, but
Yes.
My next no is I'm going with Tabitha on her birthday trip. So that's it. That's it. So, all right. So now, ladies, we are going to open it up to Q&A. Once again, audience members, we have around 7 minutes left together. So if you have any questions that you would like the panelists to ask, don't be shy. Drop them in the comment section, and I'll get to as many as possible. The first question that we have, ladies, which comes from Courtney, states, do you have any favorite quotes or mantras that inspire you?
So I keep one in my email signature, and I don't know who to attribute it to. So it's, if serving is below you, leadership is beyond you. And it's just something that I live by. I was taught to live a life of service, not to the point where it's completely overdone, but I do believe that kind of that servant leadership and being and having a mind of service first opens doors that you could never dream of. So it's something that I choose to live by, and it's something that I try to infuse into the work and the work and the coaching that I do with others as well.
I love that. That's beautiful. I'm typing all of these out. That's great. Who else?
I can go next.
Yeah.
I actually love, she's a Navajo poet named Lucy Tapahanzo, and we did bring her to TCU a few years ago, so it was great to finally meet her in person. So one of the things that she has, and again, this is just a little quote from her, is that we believe in old values and new ideas. And I think that's just respecting those who have come before us, and then also being open to what's in the future, right? So that's really kind of how I look at it, and it's really kind of a mantra for me in how I approach life in general. So
I love that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I can go. So this might sound a little silly, but this is like a little quote that I always try to put into any speech that I give or any sort of public speaking. And it's a lyric from a Disney song in Princess and the Frog by Mama Odie says, "You have to dig a little deeper." And so I think that's something that you know your own worth and you know your own strength better than anyone else. And so it's up to you to decide what is important to you and what you're going to pour your time, your resiliency, and your energy into. And so if it's something that is worth doing, it's always going to be a little bit hard, but you need to make sure that you're finding that balance and digging as deep as you can do in that moment.
Yeah, I agree. And that's okay if you've dug the hole and that's as far as you can go in that moment.
Exactly. And knowing as far as you can go and saying no and knowing your own worth and boundaries is definitely something that's key.
Yes, for sure. Electra?
I guess for me, there's so many quotes and things that are going through in my mind, but for me, I love yoga, and it just really keeps me grounded. And before our classes, my yoga teacher always says, "What is your intention for your practice today?" So I like to kind of think about that as I go through daily life. What is my intention for the day? What am I looking for in this day? Do I need peace? Do I need calmness? Do I need some joy? So that's kind of how I kind of like to go throughout my day, and just what is my intention? What do I want to do for myself in whatever venue, whatever space, whatever practice that I'm doing? So just kind of a little yoga mantra, or whatever that looks like.
I love it. Just walk around in total peace. So we have, if serving is below you, leadership is beyond you. We believe in old values and new ideas. You have to dig a little deeper. And what is your intention? So I think if we just carry those wherever we go, we should be okay, right, ladies? Okay. All right. We have another question from the audience, and it states, what is next for you? Do you have any new goals? Is there something that you are working on right now? This question was submitted by Dr. Flo. Is there something that you would like to share with the community? Anything associated with what's next for you?
I can go. So like I said, I'm in medical school right now, and I'm on track to graduate in May of 2026. So 3 more years, which is super exciting. And then afterwards, I want to pursue a pediatrics residency for 3 years, and then go on to either do a pediatric critical care fellowship or pediatric sports medicine fellowship.
That's awesome. Congrats. Super congrats.
Thank you.
Love that.
Yes, lots of school ahead of me, but lots of fun.
I think for me, I think for me, just kind of being semi-retired, because again, leaving one venue at the public school and now into the private practice, and being now in my 3rd year of owning my own practice and working with associates, is just continuing to grow and continuing to learn just new things, how I can be a better provider for my clients, and just as far as a better supervisor, but also still learning how to enjoy this part of flexibility of being semi-retired, and just travel more, keep those connections with my friends, and whenever I can with the university. So that's what I look forward to, just continuing to grow. You're never too old. Now, I don't want to go back to school. No, not at all. I just had a conference. I love going to conferences and being around like-minded people and learning new techniques and things like that. So yeah, no more school for me. I'm good.
So Electra, we should see you on the next trip with Tabitha.
Oh yes. I have several trips planned this year. So
okay, good. We love that. Tabitha or Tracy?
Yeah, I started this journey back in late 2020 when I was building a program for underrepresented professionals in their professional development, their leadership development, specifically to help them navigate their succession and progression within corporate America. So I use that as context to say that part of what I am pursuing now, which is a lot of like heart and mission work, is looking at how do we make leadership development accessible to underrepresented groups. What I found is that it's not necessarily accessible because they don't have the sponsorship, they don't have the advocates within their organization who make it known what's available to them. It might be inaccessible to financial reasons, et cetera. And we all deserve those opportunities to grow and to be coached and to be developed into the best leaders that we can be. So I am just embarking on this journey to identify what needs to be in place for Black and Brown professionals to receive that coaching and that leadership development that they deserve and that they need in order to continue to progress in their careers. So not sure what that looks like in practice yet, but there are a lot of conversations that are happening, a lot of people who I've talked to who have identified that same need. And we have so many great leaders out there who need to be given the visibility and the opportunity to grow and advance. And I'm thankful for the advocacy and the sponsorship that I received over the years. So this is my way of turning around and saying, okay, what can I do in order to pay that back and pay it forward, as my sponsors and mentors and advocates have challenged me to do.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Tabitha?
Yes. So I think it's very kind of similar to what Tracy just said, but more from the aspect of a student development. I think I see myself as a mentor, but also as an advocate for young children, I guess, of minority descent. But I think the other piece is having that single source of whether that's with being able to visit a website or being able to call me directly, or having other like-minded people with the same aspirations to be able to help kids, high school, middle school, elementary, to be able to provide that to students. It's something I, again, like I said, just do out of the kindness of my heart, but kind of more thinking next level. What does that look like? I just have put it on paper. Don't know what it looks like, but that's something that's going to be a challenge that I think that I'm looking forward to. Again, part of that is also just learning more, and kind of how do you give back to your community locally, and then also just where I come from too, and to be able to provide that to students is what I'm looking forward to, hopefully. Fingers crossed.
Well, good luck. That sounds amazing. I'm excited for you. All right, TCU and those who have joined us this afternoon, can we just give a round of applause to the panelists, a virtual round of applause for this amazing session. This was wonderful, and I hope that everyone that tuned in had a chance to see how amazing these women are. It's also been an honor to host this session, and I now want to call Dr. Flo to inform everyone of some events that we have left in the semester in our Office of Diversity and Inclusion. Dr. Flo?
Thank you, Leslie, and thank you, such powerful women on this panel. I am forever grateful for all the golden nuggets of information, the wisdom that you poured out. Thank you for sharing that. So I have the honor and privilege of serving as the Assistant Director of Diversity and Inclusion, as well as the 150th Sesquicentennial Celebration co-chair of the DEI Committee. So we have a couple of events coming up. On March 29th at 6 p.m. in the Blue Ballroom, we will be featuring Dolores Huerta as our DEI speakers for part of our speaker series for the 150th celebration. We will also be celebrating AAPI-NH week, April 10th through April 15th. And this celebration is called Global Asia's Bridging the World Classroom with the TCU Community. So be on the lookout for information about AAPI-NH Week. We're also going to celebrate Race and Reconciliation Week. It'll be called Cause and Common Ground. This will be April 17th through the 21st. Expect a screen on the green, so a movie night. Expect Reconciliation Day, as well as a fun fair to round out the week. And last but not least, because I know we're pressed on time, on April 25th, we will virtually feature Dr. Ibram Kendi, who wrote the book, How to Be Anti-Racist. So how not to be anti-racist, and he will be virtually speaking with us at 6:30 p.m. So more information to come on that. Again, thank you all so much for the beautiful opportunity. All I have to say is lead on, ladies, with intention, and go Frogs. I turn it back to you, Leslie. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Flo. Once again, if you have any questions, comments that need to be addressed, please reach out to the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, and we can help you with any of the events that Dr. Flo just suggested. And as we leave, just remember our 4 quotes from the ladies today. If serving is below you, leadership is beyond you. We believe in old values and new ideas. You have to dig a little deeper. And what is your intention today? Have a wonderful afternoon, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go Frogs.
Go Frogs.